Good day, welcome. This is your Daily Matter with Lady V. Today we look at Psalm 66, verse 1 through 5, and we'll also look at verse 16 through 20. Psalm 66, verse 1 through 5. It says, "Shout for joy to God, all the earth. Sing the glory of his name. Make his praise glorious. Say to God, how awesome are your deeds. So great is your power that your enemies cringe before you. All the earth bow down to you. They sing praise to you. They sing the praise of your name. Come and see what God has done, his wondrous deeds for mankind." We see that the psalmist is saying today in the first four verses, he is calling upon the whole earth to join in singing the praises of God. He says it should be a joyful song, one that celebrates the excellencies of God. The praise should be glorious because the subject is glorious. This is the very word of the song of universal worship that will be given. It is saying, Lord, your accomplishments are tremendous. Your power is devastating to your enemies that they cringe before you. At last, the whole earth will bow before the sovereign God in worship. Everywhere, people will be singing songs of praise to Messiah. This, of course, will be in the new kingdom age, which takes us to what we want to look at this morning, verse 16 through 20. It says, "Come and hear, all you who fear God. Let me tell you what he has done for me. I cried out to him with my mouth. His praise was on my tongue. If I had cherished sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. But God has surely listened and has heard my prayer. Praise be to God, who has not rejected my prayer or withheld his love from me." So we see over in verse 1 through 4, he says, "Come and see." Over in verse 16 through 20, he is saying, "Come and hear." The psalmist is giving an invitation. The writer says, "Come and see, but also come and hear what the Lord has done." He wanted to give his testimony of who God is and what God has done. Do you have a testimony of what God has done for you? Do I have a testimony of what God has done for me? Surely he has done so much for us that we should testify of who he is and his goodness towards the children of men. So we testify about his works And here the psalmist was saying, yes, we testify of God's work in history. He has done it in the past, and we are depending upon him to do it presently and also to continue to do it in the future. They know from past dealings that God has dealt merciful to them. So the psalmist was now saying, he deals also with my soul, that which only he can deal with. Yes, you can see his wonderful works, but that which is happening in my heart, I can only tell you about it. So come, I will tell you about it. He says, come, all God-fearing people. You are invited to hear this testimony. It is a testimony in answer to prayer, because he had a eightfold testimony. He says, I cried unto God with my mouth. Then he says, and I extol him with my tongue. He says, if I had regarded iniquity or sin in my heart, the Lord would not have heard me. He says, but God has heard me. He says, God attended to the voice of my prayer. He said, God has not turned away my prayer. He has not turned his mercy away from me. So here the writer says to us in verse 18, if I had cherished sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. But surely he listened. What the writer is saying, I am testifying to you that there is a reason why our prayers sometimes are unanswered. He says, prayer with iniquity or wickedness or gross injustice cherished in the heart is a way to get our prayers not answered. He says, but in this case, that was not so with him. God heard him, God answered, God supported in the time of trouble. He was saying this proved that because I have not held on or loved or cherished the wrong things in my heart, God attended to my prayer. And so by this, he knew that the question of sin in his life was settled. So he testified of that in verse 18 through 20. So the writer is saying, sin hinders faith, and lack of faith hinders the answer to prayer. This inspired the writer, as we can see, to burst out in praise. So he says, praise be to God, who has not rejected my prayer or withheld his love. Some Bible will say his mercy from me. So we see the writer was joyful, and he wanted everyone to know that God heard his cry and God answered his prayer. Therefore, he can shout for joy. He can sing praises unto God because he knew he could depend upon God and call upon him whenever he was in trouble. And as long as he didn't have any wickedness, any injustice in his heart, God would hear him and God would deliver. Today, I would like us to get rid of all injustice, all wickedness, as the psalmist says. And let us not cherish the things in our hearts that are not of God, so that when we pray, God will hear and answer us. God bless you today. Thank you again for watching, and may God bless the USA.